Our next speaker, we are in for such a treat. This is Michael C. Sherrard. Michael is a gifted teacher with a passion for equipping the church, especially the up-and-coming generations, to make the case for Christianity. He's the lead pastor at Crosspoint Community Church, the co-creator and director of Ratio Christi College Prep, speaker for the Life Training Institute, founder of the Pro-Life Pastors Initiative, and a faculty member here for Summit Ministries. Michael travels throughout the United States and Europe, training groups to contend for Christianity and the pro-life position. He speaks to churches, camps, and conferences, including the National Conference for Christian Apologetics, Summit Ministries, and the Clarkson Academy in Great Britain. Michael has also appeared on numerous television and radio programs, such as Fox and Friends and Moody Radio. Michael is the author of Relational Apologetics, Defending the Christian Faith with Holiness, Respect, and Truth, which was released in 2015. He's a contributing author to the Revised Students Apologetics Study Bible. Michael also writes regularly on cultural, theological, and worldview issues. His articles have appeared in publications such as Christian Research Journal, The Poached Egg, and The Stream. Michael has a BA in Religion and a Master's of Divinity with a concentration in apologetics from Luther Rice College and Seminary, and has done considerable postgraduate work in the area of New Testament ethics. In 2004, he lucked out and married Terry Anna. Living in Peachtree, Georgia, with their 5 crazy kids, they attempt to make it through each day as they overcome severe sleep deprivation. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Michael Sherrard. Welcome.
It's certainly my great joy to be here. I love this place. I love Summit. From what you heard from Dr. Jeff last session, this is a unique place where you're able to see the combination of truth and relationship and its powerful effect. It's so good. The idea of combining truth and relationship is of immense importance to the topic we're going to talk about now, identity, understanding who you are and what makes you valuable. And I'm curious how you would answer that question. Who are you? Do you possess a meaningful and valuable life? And why so? This is of immense importance, the question in general, but consider the way the younger generations are encountering this through the advent of social media and the smartphone. I mean, they're presented every day with the entire world and the success and the stories, real or not, of other people. And every day they're confronted with this question, do I have what it takes to do X, Y, or Z? Because of social media and the smartphone, it seems like the only person we truly know is the person we're supposed to be. Of course, this is an important topic for us. Recently, I came across a joke that my dad told growing up. And if there's one thing we know about dad jokes, it's what? They're the best. That's right. Thank you. I, of course, have to say that because I have 5 kids, and I've already suffered a 6-year-old rolling her eyes at one of my jokes. But this joke is more of a story, and the story goes like this. There was a plane, and upon this plane, there were 4 people. There was a pilot, there was a brilliant scientist, there was, I'm taking liberty here, a Summit student, and there was a priest. The pilot comes running out about halfway through the flight, panic in his face, saying, fellas, the plane is going down, and worse, we only have 3 parachutes. So, of course, panic grips the people on the plane, but before anybody knows what's going on, the scientist has grabbed a pack and he's jumping out of the plane, screaming, I'm sorry, I'm one of the smartest people in the world, I'm way too valuable, I'm sorry, and he's gone. And he's out the plane. And so the remaining 3 guys are just left going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Well, the priest talks first and he says, listen, men, I've lived a good life. I don't have very many regrets. You 2 take the remaining parachutes and you jump out. To which the pilot immediately comes in and says, no, it is my duty to go down with my plane. And the 2 men are going back and forth. And the young man says, but wait. And he's trying to interject, but they won't have anything to do with it. And finally he screams, we have 3 parachutes. And the pilot says, no, I'm sorry, son, you misheard. We only have 3 parachutes. And he says, no, we still have 3 parachutes. The smartest man in the world just jumped out of the plane with my backpack on. That's a good dad joke, isn't it? All right, yeah. The original Michael C. Sherrard would be happy to know his joke's living on here. The thing about that joke, though, is it kind of illustrates a view that we have about what makes life valuable. You know, and in part, the joke is funny because the smart man does a dumb thing, but in part, we're like, yeah, you got what you deserved. Because we don't think that somebody's value is associated with their intelligence, do we? Do we really think that those that are more intelligent have more value? Do we think the rich have more value and should be given more advantages in society? Do we think, now pick any characteristic and put it in there. Do we think anybody, because of some characteristic they possess, that they are fundamentally worth more than other people? And on one hand, we would say no, but there's a little bit of inconsistency here. And it's why this is such a confusing issue for us, and especially the coming generations. We live in what I think would be fair to say is the ironic age of the quest for equality. Never before, perhaps, has there been a time when so many people are committed to seeking that we have a fair and equitable world where all people are treated with equal dignity and respect by virtue of what they are, but they're doing so in the most degrading, derogatory, using such inflamed rhetoric. Of course, we see this in politics and with the the recent experience with the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings. And of course, Hillary Clinton recently said that Democrats, we cannot be civil with a party that is trying to destroy everything we stand for until we have power, which I just laugh at. Imagine me coming to you and say, hey, listen, I'm going to be nice to you after I beat you up and put you in a cage, which is just, so in this society, that's pretty common, though. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, even pro-life, pro-choice, or whatever your religious background is, you will say and believe that all people should be treated fairly. But then if you just look at the way that we talk, and the way we treat people, and the anxiety and the stress that exists with especially the younger generations, we're left to really consider, do we really believe in equality and the fact that all people share the same value? I think this is, if not one of the issues of the time, it is at least one of the greatest issues of our time, but with it comes a tremendous opportunity, I think, for the gospel to be heard and actually received with thanksgiving. So during our time, we're going to talk about image, helping the next generation understand who they are and what makes them valuable. Now, I think you can do this, and you can be very effective in helping the next generation understand who they are if you do three things. The first one is to anchor what they already believe to be true about this subject. This is why I'm so passionate about this topic and helping this generation be able to work with the next generation. Because think about life and all of the sources of conflict. Think about all the things that we disagree upon. It seems like it's hard to find agreement on anything. On this issue, nearly everybody already agrees on the main premise, which is it's a marvelous opportunity for us. And here's what I mean by that. Everybody, nearly every person you're going to meet, already believes in the full human value of each person. For example, are you going to meet anybody that, and of course there are some people, but are you going to find anybody that says, yes, I'm a racist and proud of it? Are you going to find anybody that says, yes, I'm a sexist and proud of it? Are you going to find anybody that says transphobia or homophobia is good? You're going to find anybody that says Nazism was a brilliant idea? Why are you not going to find anybody that thinks these are good ideas? They're all going to fundamentally reject the idea that one group of people is worth less than another group of people because of some characteristics they possess. They fundamentally reject the idea that somebody, because of their skin color, is worth less than somebody else, and therefore we can treat them however we see fit. Likewise, people fundamentally reject the idea, as they should, that men are worth more than women by virtue of being a man. No, we reject these ideas because we go, what do? We go, no, people are valuable because they are people. everybody seemingly agrees on that idea. They understand that people should not be devalued because of not having some characteristic. How did we get here as a society here in the West? How did we get to this agreement? It's a really interesting question. As it relates to human value, you have two choices. The technical way to explain this would be either human beings have ontological value, which means you are valuable by virtue of what you are, or you have functional or instrumental value, which means you are valuable because of what you can do. And the easiest way to explain the difference, the options here, as it relates to human value is simply this. Human beings are either valuable because of what they are or what they can do. You see where society is, right? They reject the idea, fundamentally, that human beings are valuable because of what they do or some arbitrary characteristic they have. And it's good, they should. It's a very dangerous world when we begin to accept ideas like that. But again, how did we get here? How did we get to this belief? Because secularism can't take us there. How, or any worldview that has as part of its core naturalism or materialism, it can't get us to this belief. Simply put, you could ask this question: how can a universe of meaninglessness accidentally produce things of intrinsic value? You can't get there. Now, consistent naturalists will agree. Peter Singer, for example, said that the notion that human life is sacred just because it is human life is medieval. Recently, I was watching an interview, or it was kind of a conversation between Jordan Peterson. I'm sure you're familiar with who Jordan Peterson is. He's the flavor of the month. And Susan Blackmore. This was hosted by Justin Brierley, who does a podcast out of the UK. And at one point, Blackmore, she admits, she says, yeah, I know, life is meaningless. There is no rhyme or reason, there's just no meaning in life. And Peterson says, but you act as if it has meaning. And she says, well, of course I do, because what else are you going to do? And then Brierley steps in and says, so are you pretending that your choices have meaning? And she says, no, I'm not pretending. I would say that I am assigning value to the free choices that I make as I construct my own meaning. So that's not the first time I've heard that, by the way. One time, I've got 5 kids, my 4-year-old Conrad was running around the house as a ninja. And I go, dude, that's so cool. You're pretending to be a ninja. He said, actually, no, Dad, I'm assigning the characteristic of ninja-ness to me right now. Wait, so you're, of course, he didn't say that. But that'd be absurd, right? No, you're pretending and assigning value to the characteristics. That was a clever way of Blackmore to say, yes, I'm pretending. But they recognize this isn't Christian spin, if you will. Outside of theism, life is inherently meaningless. Human life fundamentally has no more value than that of a cockroach. It got here through the same undirected, unguided process as all of life. Human beings are simply at the end of a countless number of genetic mutations. We are, in essence, genetic mutants. We don't have value in our being. So what we are left to do is construct meaning for ourselves. Of course, the great problem there is what was illustrated in the Blackmore conversation. Just because I say now this thing is meaningful and valuable, why does it make it so? Naturalism, as a worldview, as a key component of it, cannot take us to equality. Because all it can create is a society where we say these things are valuable, but why is it that these things are valuable? Just because we say so, and can it change over time? Of course, one of the great problems is if that's the case, that society establishes the things that are valuable, how could you ever critique other civilizations? How could you ever say something like the Holocaust is wrong? You couldn't. All you could say was that group of people assigned value accordingly, and they lived consistently by it. And so we understand why it's such a dangerous idea. So, well, if secularism can't take us there, if it isn't an adequate justification for the belief that all people are intrinsically valuable and therefore should be treated equally with dignity and respect, where did this belief came from? Well, here's the surprising news, right? It came from Christianity. Christian teaching on this produced the Western world and all of its joys and peace and human flourishing. Consider the first century where Christianity grew out of. How do you think they treated slaves in Rome? Not very well. It was estimated that 1 in 5 residents in Rome were slaves. The legal status of a slave was that of a thing. Aristotle defined a slave as living property. How do you think women were treated in Rome in the first century? Not much better. Generally speaking, how were women treated historically? Pretty poorly, right? Well, where did these ideas come from? Plato. Listen to Plato, the words of Plato. Do you know then of anything practiced by mankind in which the masculine sex does not surpass the female on all these points? The one sex is far surpassed by the other in everything. One may say the woman is weaker than the man in every respect. Aristotle said this too. The male is by nature superior and the female inferior. Now this, you hear it and you think, well, surely not somebody as smart as Aristotle and Plato would accept this. This was the common view. All throughout history, we have assigned value to other people based on some kind of arbitrary characteristic. Now, against that cultural backdrop, consider the teaching of just the Apostle Paul. This is radical. In Ephesians 6:9, he said, "Masters, do the same to them and stop your threatening, knowing that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven and there's no partiality with him." What did Paul do to the slave and the slave owner? He put them on equal footing in the eyes of God, saying God shows no partiality. He sees you the same. Your actions then better reflect this. Moreover, what did Paul say about women? In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 4, Paul says this, "For the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does." To which every man in the first century said, "Preach it, Paul." Amen. But Paul says this, "Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does." Paul just told men in the first century that their wives owned them to the same degree they owned them in this mutual idea of submission. This was radical. That stemmed from the Christian belief and understanding of imago Dei. This is the heritage of Christianity. All people are equally valuable because they are made in the image of their God and are instilled with immense significance and meaning and purpose. That thought liberated the West, and it can liberate a generation today, and it probably can liberate you as well. As a pastor, I meet so many men and women that don't think their worth amounts to, their life amounts to much because, well, they don't have the job that they thought they would have. They don't have a prestigious job, or maybe they're within a prestigious field, but they're kind of at the bottom of the totem pole, and they feel like, my life isn't worth anything. Is that what gives your life value? Your job? No. You possess all the value you will ever possess because you were made in the image of God. The rest of your life isn't therefore concerned with constructing meaning and value. You live it out, which is a huge difference, isn't it? So, for example, the way that this transforms work isn't something through which you now build value for yourself. You live out value as you love your neighbor in a way of loving God. Work becomes an act of service, and your gifts and your personality become something that you steward, not something that you look to say, well, I'm valuable because I'm smart, or I'm funny, or I'm good looking, or I'm athletic. No, you just steward these things. So the first thing you must do is anchor what they already believe to be true. They already believe that all people are equally valuable and should be treated equally. Why are we allowed to believe that? We're allowed to believe that because there is a God that does exist and made us in his image, and he loves us more than we could imagine. You must anchor it in that. Second, you need to affirm this. And one of the simple ways you can affirm this is with your language. For example, with my daughters, I say, for example, Caden, I think you are so smart. And one time my wife pointed out to me rightly, she says, Mike, you got to be careful. You don't want Kaden to grow up thinking her value is in her intelligence. I was like, wow, you're exactly right. So you know what I do? And it's so fun in my home because they now finish the sentence for me. Especially with my girls, I say, girls, and I believe this, okay? I believe this. You are so beautiful and so smart, but I would love you if you were ugly as a toad and as bad as a witch. And I want to communicate to them, I need to have convictional consistency. If I believe that my daughters are made in the image of God and that is the basis of their value, I need to let them know that while I recognize their individuality. And that's when identity begins to take shape in a healthy way. Our individual quirks don't define us. They're just good things, and we're glad we live in a world of diversity. It enriches this world and makes it beautiful, but our differences aren't the things that define us or give us value. This is such a liberating idea. And lastly, help them apply this truth. Think about vocational discipleship, and I'm going to give this to you in 30 seconds. When you start to recognize the abilities of the next generation, do not do what my generation did, or my parents' generation, which was be anything you want to be. Say, I think you're really good at this. Have you ever thought about doing this? You know what? I have a friend that's in local politics. You guys should get together. This next generation needs to be shown what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus Christ, and youth ministers can do that for those that are going in to be pastors. But youth ministers aren't well equipped to vocationally disciple an up-and-coming nurse or lawyer or politician or mathematician. Help them apply this truth and let them live in the freedom that comes from knowing they are made in the image of God. They already possess a valuable life. Let us come alongside them and help them live this out. Amen? Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I just have a few questions. If we could just have you answer a little bit as it relates to Generation Z. For them and contextualize it for us, how is a biblical understanding of identity helpful specifically in evangelism whenever it comes to Generation Z?
Yeah, you think about evangelism. One of the key components of evangelism is you have to understand sin. Well, sin is a very abstract concept, isn't it? And either you can grab onto really bad things and go, well, yeah, okay, that's bad, but I don't do that. Mm-hmm. You know, I just tell lies and I cheated on my test. But what's the big deal about that? So imagine this, though, and go home and read Psalm 8. Psalm 8 is a marvelous psalm where the psalm looks at the heavens and goes, who am I that you are aware of me?
Yeah.
That you care of me. But it doesn't just stop there, because we've all had that experience, right? We look at the ocean, we look at the universe, and we go, God is so big, who am I? But here's human significance in light of creation. What did God do after he created? He put us in charge of it.
Yeah.
And that's what the psalmist says. When I consider the work of your fingers
hands,
and that you allow me to steward all this. So when you think of human significance, when you think of human significance in light of that, what have we done with our significance? We chose to worship this creation rather than the Creator. We use this world to serve ourselves rather than other people.
Yeah.
When you understand your significance in the created order and that God made us in his image, it really makes all sin vile. Yeah. What can be worse than what we have done with our humanity?
Interesting. Very good. As it relates to Gen Z, Michael, and so many of us in this room are aware, and those who are watching, you know, there's so many movements that are taking place in the United States today. Obviously, many of them are rooted in an idea of social justice, some biblical, some not, some very worldly. How does a biblical understanding of identity affect the way that we view abortion and communicating that message? Because I think we've all probably had conversations with 20-somethings, with Gen Z. This is why abortion is a big, and all of the pushback. So can you speak into that just a little bit?
So when it comes to abortion, there's kind of key questions. What is the status of the unborn, like what is it? Science answers that question, by the way. Modern science says that from the earliest stages of development, the unborn are distinct, living, and whole human beings. Science has settled the issue of what the unborn is. What we are allowed to do with the unborn is a philosophical or a theological question. So it comes back to this question. What makes human life valuable? So you see the relevance here? If we agree that human life is valuable not because of some arbitrary characteristic it possesses, like even rationality, that human life is valuable because it has intrinsic worth by virtue of what it is, then what does that mean for the unborn? It means that they possess the same value and dignity as we, and we ought to give them, namely, the right to life.
The right to live.
Yeah.
Got it. And lastly here, what are some practical ways to help students understand their identity in terms of worshiping God and loving others? So in other words, how can teenagers, young adults, use their personality, their abilities, and their gifting to honor God and love their neighbor?
Yeah, I'm glad this is a question because I blew my time and I had to skip some of this stuff in the lecture. But yeah, this is huge. And this comes back to the importance of mentorship and relationships coming off of what Dr. Jeff talked about. This is where we really got to help them stay anchored to this idea because they're going to go, okay, yes, I am made in the image of God. I am man or woman made in the image of God, and I've been given these giftings, this personality. What do I do with this? We help them say, you love God by loving other people with these individual gifts. Yeah. So that's why things like vocational discipleship are huge. Because it's one of the primary ways that we love God is by loving other people. That's what vocation is. Our callings in life are given to us by God as a way to steward this world and love other people. And this is an act of worship. Yeah. And who's helping young adults figure this out? Who? Literally nobody. That has to change. It's not the youth minister's job. It is our generation's job. Youth ministry is a funnel, and youth ministry is needed, and it is a vital component of the service and the work of the church. But the discipling of the next generation is going to require more than just a youth minister. It's going to require other professionals that can show the next generation, this is what it looks like to follow Jesus Christ like this. Here's what it's like to be a follower of Jesus Christ with humor. Yeah. Here's what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus Christ with intelligence, how you can use it to love other people and not just win every argument you're in.
Right.
And they need to see it modeled in us because here's what they see. When they see in an older generation, for example, that has believed the idea that I am my characteristics, I am the smart person rather than I'm a man made in the image of God who has been given a mind to think. What do you spend your whole life doing if you've reduced your identity to one characteristic you have or one part of your personality? You spend your whole life fighting for that. Yeah. The smart person can never shut up because that's who they are. The smart person has to win every argument because if he doesn't, what do other people think about him? Oh, well, he's not the smart person. Well, if I'm not the smart person, who am I? Yeah. So this is how you can help them see that simply. Like if you're a smart person, they need to see you be humble. They need to see you not get the last word and teach them how to use their intelligence in a God-honoring way to love Him by love other people. So yes, this is one of the themes I think we'll get from this summit base camp is the importance of modeling Christianity and combining truth and relationship.
Very good. Thank you. Let's give it up for Michael. Let's give him a hand.